The planet was quiet, a cold and silent world under a pale sky. Captain John walked slowly across the broken ground, his boots crunching against sharp stones. His ship had landed a few kilometers away, its engines cooling in the thin air. He had come here following a strange signal, a pulse of energy that his scanners could not explain. The place looked empty, but John had learned long ago that silence always hid secrets. He carried a small light, and its beam touched broken walls half buried in sand. The ruins of a structure rose before him, ancient and alien, carved with symbols no human had ever seen. They glowed faintly as if remembering power from another time. John felt a chill as he entered the dark doorway. The air inside was heavy, smelling of dust and something older, something alive. Every step echoed against the stone, and the silence pressed closer around him. He had explored many strange worlds, but something about this place felt different, heavier, dangerous. His eyes caught a faint glow deeper inside the chamber. He moved forward, heart beating faster. At the center of the ruins stood a tall black pedestal, and on top of it rested a crystal. It was long and sharp, its surface pulsing with strange blue light. The crystal hummed softly, a sound that seemed to enter his bones. John stopped and stared. The thing looked powerful, but it also felt like it wanted him to touch it. He took a slow step forward, then another. His hand rose without thinking, drawn to the glow like a moth to fire. Then a voice cut through the silence. "Don't touch it," the voice whispered. Sharp and cold, John spun around, his light shaking in his hand. From the shadows, a figure appeared. Tall, slim, and not human, it was a woman, but her skin was pale silver, her hair flowing like dark liquid. Her eyes shone like twin stars, bright and filled with warning. She looked at him with both fear and anger. "Pull it out and you'll regret it," she said, her voice trembling like the crystal itself. John froze. He had met aliens before, traders, warriors, wanderers, but never one like this. Her presence was powerful, yet she seemed fragile, as if the warning was not just for him, but for herself too. His eyes went back to the crystal, then to her. "What is it?" he asked slowly, keeping his voice calm. "Why should I leave it?" The alien woman stepped closer, her long fingers curling tightly as if holding back fear. "You don't understand," she whispered. "That crystal is not a treasure. It is a prison." Her words made John's chest tighten. "A prison," he repeated. She nodded quickly, her eyes never leaving the glowing shard. "Yes, it holds something inside, something that must never be free." John studied her. Was she lying? Was this some trick to scare him away from whatever power this was? Humans were explorers, and curiosity was stronger than fear. He wanted to know, he needed to know. The crystal pulsed again. Brighter, the hum growing louder. It was as if it was calling to him. His fingers twitched, itching to reach out. The woman's voice rose sharply, her tone breaking. "Don't! Please, you don't know what it will do!" The chamber trembled softly, dust falling from the ceiling. The symbols on the walls flickered with light. John felt the pull stronger now, like invisible hands dragging him forward. But the woman stepped between him and the pedestal, blocking his way. Her silver skin shimmered in the glow, her eyes wide with terror. For a long moment, the two stood in silence, the air heavy with tension. John's hand was inches from the crystal. The alien's hand raised to stop him. The crystal glowed brighter, the hum becoming a deep thrum in his chest. John's heart pounded, his mind racing. Part of him wanted to obey the warning, but another part whispered, "What if she is wrong? What if the power is real?" The alien woman leaned closer, her voice low and urgent. "I am the last of my people, and I have guarded this prison for centuries," she said. "You think you are strong, human, but this thing will break you. It will break your world. Do not pull it out." John swallowed hard. His eyes locked on the crystal, the glow reflected in his helmet, painting his face with ghostly blue. He had come across dangers before, but never had he felt such a mix of fear and temptation. The ruin around him seemed alive, whispering promises and threats. The warning echoed in his ears again. "Pull it out and you'll regret it." John stood frozen, torn between human curiosity and the alien woman's desperate warning. The choice would change everything, but in that moment, the only sound was the heartbeat of the crystal and the terror in the alien woman's eyes. John's breath was heavy as he stared at the glowing crystal. The alien woman's words echoed in his mind, sharp and urgent. "Pull it out and you'll regret it." Yet the light of the crystal danced in his eyes, pulling his thoughts away from her warning. It was not just an object, it was alive, it whispered to him, though no words were spoken. He shook his head, trying to clear his mind. "I have seen many things," he muttered softly, "but nothing like this." The woman stepped closer, her silver skin glowing in the light. "You should not even be here," she said, her voice carrying both sorrow and anger. "This place is cursed. It was buried for a reason." John's curiosity burned stronger. He had always believed humans were meant to uncover secrets, to go where no one else dared. That was why he was an explorer. That was why he was alive, but this time, the secret seemed to be reaching for him first. The crystal pulsed again, sending a small vibration through the floor. He felt it in his boots, in his bones, as if the ground itself wanted him to take it. His hand twitched again and he forced it down. "Why do I feel like it wants me?" he asked, his voice low. The alien woman's eyes narrowed. "Because it does, it feeds on desire. It tempts the heart, it tricks the mind," she answered. "That is how it breaks you, that is how it escapes." John frowned, sweat forming on his forehead. A treasure that wanted to be taken, a prison that begged to be opened. It was madness, but also a mystery too deep to walk away from. He had come across traps before, but never one that looked so beautiful. The blue light painted the walls in waves, making the carvings shift like shadows alive. He studied the alien woman again. Her eyes were filled with fear, but also with something else, something hidden. Was it the whole truth she told him, or was there more she refused to say? "You are guarding it," John said slowly, "but why you? Why alone?" Her jaw tightened, her fingers curling against her arms. "My people are gone," she whispered, her voice heavy like stone. "They died trying to contain it, and I remain. Cursed to watch forever." John's chest tightened at her words. For a moment he felt pity, but the crystal's glow pulled his eyes back. It was brighter now, brighter than before. The hum grew into a low song, deep and soothing. Like a voice just out of reach, it called to him, promising power, knowledge, perhaps even immortality. His breath caught. He saw visions, fleeting shapes in the light, stars bending, worlds burning, a shadow rising from within the crystal. But with it, he saw himself holding the power, bending the shadow, controlling it. The vision filled him with both dread and desire. Could it be controlled? Could he do what her people failed to do? The alien woman stepped forward suddenly. Breaking the spell, her hand grabbed his arm, strong and trembling. "Do not listen to it," she cried, her voice sharp like a blade. "It shows lies, it shows what you want. But the truth is only death." John's muscles tensed. But he did not pull away. Her grip was firm, her eyes locked on his, glowing with desperate fire. "You think you are strong," she whispered. "But it will eat you alive, it will use you as a door, and nothing can stop it once it walks free." The chamber groaned again, dust falling from the cracked ceiling. The symbols on the walls shifted. The carvings showing battles and fire seemed to move. John's heart pounded louder than the hum of the crystal. His mind fought between logic and temptation, between caution and curiosity. Every second felt like a test, and he was failing. He pulled his arm free and stepped closer to the pedestal. The alien woman gasped, fear flashing across her face. "Don't!" she shouted, her voice echoing against the stone. But John did not stop. His hand hovered inches above the crystal, the glow painting his fingers blue. The hum filled his ears until he could hear nothing else. His mind whispered, take it, it is yours." The woman's voice broke through again, desperate, raw. "If you pull it, the prison will break, the creature will rise, and not even your world will survive." Her words struck him hard. He froze, his hand trembling. Images of Earth flashed in his mind, his people, his home. Was he willing to risk it all for this one secret? The crystal pulsed once more. Stronger, brighter. The whole chamber shook, and cracks spread across the floor. John stumbled back, his heart racing. The alien woman rushed to the pedestal, pressing her hands against the stone, chanting words in a language he could not understand. The glow dimmed for a moment, as if fighting her will. John stood there, sweat dripping down his face, breath sharp and uneven. The temptation was not gone, but he knew now that the choice would come again. Sooner or later the crystal would demand it. And when it did, he was not sure if he could resist. The chamber was silent again, but the silence was heavy. John stood still, his chest rising and falling as the glow of the crystal faded to a softer light. The alien woman remained at the pedestal, her hands pressed against the black stone, her body trembling as if the effort had drained her. Slowly, she turned her shining eyes toward him. "You should never have come here," she whispered. Her voice filled with both sorrow and exhaustion. John tightened his grip on the light in his hand. He wanted answers now. He needed to know what this was. "You say it is a prison," he said, his voice low but steady. "Tell me, what is trapped inside? What is so terrible that your people died to keep it locked away?" The woman lowered her hands and stepped back. Her gaze dropped to the carvings along the walls, the ancient symbols that seemed alive in the crystal's glow. She raised a slender finger and pointed at one of the scenes. John followed her gesture and saw images carved deep into the stone. Figures of her people stood in battle against a dark shape. A monstrous shadow with countless arms stretching across the stars. Cities burned, ships fell from the sky, and endless fire consumed the world. "It is not only a creature," she said, her voice hollow. "It is hunger given form. It is shadow given life. It has no name that your tongue can speak." She stepped closer to the wall, tracing the carvings with her fingers. "My people created the crystal not as a weapon, but as a cage they bound it here after losing half our world. They sacrificed themselves to trap it, and they left me as the guardian." John felt a shiver crawl across his skin. The way she spoke, it was not a story, it was a memory. Her eyes were too sharp, too full of pain for this to be anything less than truth. "And now you are alone," he said quietly. Her lips tightened, and she gave a small nod. "The last of my kind, cursed to remain, because if I leave, if I fail, it will rise again." For a moment, John felt pity, real pity. He thought about how humans feared loneliness, how people fought wars just to protect their families and homes. This woman had lost everything and had been left to guard something she hated. But pity was not stronger than curiosity. His eyes drifted back to the crystal, pulsing faintly like a heart still beating. "You call it a monster," John said carefully. "But what if you are wrong? What if it can be controlled?" The woman's face twisted in anger, her silver skin glowing brighter. "Controlled?" she hissed, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You do not control a storm, you do not tame fire. You do not make a pet of a black hole." She stepped closer, her eyes burning into his. "Once it is free, it does not serve. It does not listen. It only destroys. It will use you, human. It will wear you like a mask until nothing remains." John's heart beat faster at her words, but his human mind refused to back down. He was part of a race that had always pushed boundaries, always tested limits. Humanity was stubborn, reckless, sometimes foolish, but also brilliant. He wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, a human could do what others could not. "You think I cannot resist it," he said softly. "But maybe you underestimate us." The alien woman's face softened for only a second, as if she saw something in him that frightened her more than the crystal. "You are too much like us," she whispered, "and that is why it will break you. It whispers to desire, it feeds on pride, it is patient. And you are already listening." John froze, her words sinking deep. Was she right? He had already felt the pull, already seen the visions, already wanted more. He clenched his fists and looked away from the crystal, but the glow still painted the edge of his vision. It was like a shadow he could not escape. The woman stepped back toward the pedestal, her hands hovering above the crystal once more. "I will not let it break free." "Not again," she said, her voice like steel. "But I cannot fight both you and it if you touch it, if you pull it. Then all my centuries of guarding will be for nothing." John's breath slowed, and he realized he stood at a wall he could not climb. He could not walk away from the mystery, but he could not ignore her warning either. His mind raced with questions, with possibilities, with the weight of the unknown, and still through it all, the crystal pulsed, steady and patient. Like it was waiting. At last, John whispered, almost to himself, "If it is so dangerous, why not destroy it? Why leave it here at all?" The alien woman's eyes darkened, and her voice dropped to a cold whisper. "Because destruction is freedom. If the crystal shatters, the prison opens, and nothing will stop it then." John swallowed hard. So there was no escape, no destruction, no safe answer. The crystal had to remain locked and waiting, and he had to trust the last guardian of a dead race. But as his gaze fell back to the glow, he knew deep inside that temptation would never leave him. It would keep calling, keep whispering until the day he made a choice. The chamber was quiet again, but John's mind was not. The alien woman had told him the truth, or at least part of it. He had seen the carvings. He had felt the fear in her voice still. The glow of the crystal drew his eyes, steady and patient like a heartbeat. It pulsed in rhythm with his own thoughts, whispering promises just beyond his reach. Humans were born explorers, John thought. It was in their nature to touch, to test, to push forward where others refused. The warning echoed in his head, but so did another voice, a human voice, the one that asked, what if? What if the danger is not real? What if she is hiding something? He turned his light toward the walls again. The carvings stretched across every stone. Figures of battles, burning skies, shadows rising, yes, but there were other symbols too. Circles within circles, shapes that looked like stars, patterns that looked like keys. He stepped closer and brushed the dust from one section. The images showed her people kneeling before the crystal. Not in fear, but in reverence. They held it like a gift, a treasure. Before it became a prison, John frowned, his fingers tracing the lines carved by hands long dead. Your people made this, he said softly. Not looking at her, the alien woman shifted, her silver skin catching the light. Yes, she answered, her voice tight. We made it. And we paid for our mistake. John turned to face her. But why make it at all? He asked, his voice calm but sharp. Her lips pressed together and she looked away. You would not understand, she said, her tone flat. Try me, John pressed, stepping closer, his eyes burning with the same curiosity that had brought him across the stars. The woman sighed, a sound heavy with centuries of regret. At first it was not a prison, she admitted, her gaze fixed on the crystal. It was a source, a well of energy, pure and endless. We thought it was a gift from the universe, a blessing. Her voice shook as she continued. But the more we used it, the more it fed, and the more it fed, the more it wanted, until it showed its true form. John's chest tightened. So it had been a tool, a weapon, a treasure before it became a curse. That truth scratched at his mind like claws. If it had once been a source of power, could it be used again? Could humans succeed where her people had failed? The thought lit a spark in his mind. Dangerous and thrilling, he stepped back toward the pedestal, his eyes fixed on the glow. The woman moved quickly, placing herself in front of him. Her voice sharp. Do not, she snapped. Do not even think it, I see the questions in your eyes. I know you're kind, always reaching, always taking. But this is not for you. John clenched his jaw. Maybe not for you, he said, but for us. For humanity? We don't walk away from things like this, we study them. We learn. We adapt. The alien woman's face darkened. And when it consumes you, when your cities burn and your people scream, will you still call it learning? She demanded, her voice shaking with fury. John felt her anger, but it only hardened his resolve. Humans had survived wars, disasters, and threats across the galaxy. Maybe this crystal was different. Maybe it was worse, but maybe it was not. He had seen things others called impossible, and humanity had turned them into tools, into victories. The hum grew louder as if the crystal itself fed on his thoughts. It pulsed brighter when he looked at it, like it was waiting for him to decide. The temptation sank deeper, and though he did not touch it, his mind reached out, imagining what it could mean. Energy without end, power without limits, maybe even the chance to protect Earth from any threat. The alien woman's voice cut through his thoughts, soft but sharp. You think it offers you strength, but it is only a chain. Once you pull it, you will not own it. It will own you. Her eyes glistened with pain as if she had seen this happen before. Your people are strong, human, but strength is what it uses first. It breaks the proud, it bends the brave, it eats those who believe they cannot fall. John turned away for a moment, his thoughts heavy. Her words were warnings, but warnings had never stopped humanity. In every age, in every world, humans had touched the forbidden, and sometimes they had paid, but sometimes they had won. He wondered if this was another test, another forbidden door waiting for a human hand to open it. The silence stretched long, the chamber breathing with the crystal's glow. The woman watched him, her body tense, ready to stop him again if he moved. John's mind was fire, curiosity burning hotter than fear. He did not move his hand, but his decision was already made inside. He would not leave without knowing. He would not walk away with only half the truth. No matter the danger, no matter her warning, he would learn what the crystal truly was. Human curiosity had been both curse and blessing for his kind, and now it was about to decide his fate, and maybe hers too. The ruin was alive with silence, but it was not empty. The glow of the crystal filled every shadow, every crack in the stone, every corner of John's mind. It pulsed brighter now, faster, almost like it knew the battle inside him. John's hands were steady at his sides, but his heart pounded like war drums. The alien woman stood close, her silver skin shining faintly, her eyes fixed on him with desperate fire. She could see the temptation in his face, the hunger in his gaze. "You are too close," she warned, her voice trembling but strong. "You do not understand how thin the wall is. Even a touch could be enough." John's lips tightened. "I understand more than you think," he said. Though the words tasted like a lie, his curiosity had grown into a storm, every thought clashing with her warnings. The crystal whispered silently, promising answers, power the unknown. It did not speak in words, but in feelings, waves of desire that washed over him. Every breath he took drew him closer to the edge. The woman stepped forward, blocking his path again. Her presence was calm, but her voice cracked. "I have seen this before," she said softly. "Warriors stronger than you, kings braver than you. All came here thinking they could resist, all failed. All became fuel for the thing inside." Her eyes glistened as she spoke. "I buried them myself, and I will bury you too if I must." John felt anger rising. Sharp and sudden, he was not like them. He told himself. He was human, and humans were different. Every great step forward in history had been built on risk, on refusing to listen to warnings. His chest swelled with defiance, but at the same time, fear licked at the back of his mind. What if she was right? What if even a single mistake would end everything? The chamber rumbled softly. As if the crystal fed on his conflict, dust fell from the ceiling. The symbols on the wall flickered like fire and wind. The hum deepened into a thrum that pressed against his chest. John pressed his palms against his thighs, fighting the urge to reach out. The alien woman moved closer, her voice sharp now. "Look at me," she demanded, and when his eyes met hers, she whispered, "You are already losing." John flinched. Because he knew she was right, the crystal was winning, and he had not even touched it yet. His hand rose slightly, only a few inches, but it was enough to make the woman gasp. She lunged forward, grabbing his wrist with a grip stronger than steel. Her voice broke into a shout echoing through the chamber. "Stop! If you touch it, everything ends. Do you hear me? Everything." John stared at her, their faces close. His arm trembling in her grasp, he could feel her strength. The centuries of struggle in her hands, but still the glow called to him, pushing against his mind like a tide he could not hold back. His body shook, torn between two forces, his own will and the will of the crystal. "Let go," he said, his voice rough. "No," she hissed, her eyes blazing with fury. "I will not let another fool open the door." The crystal pulsed again, this time so bright that the chamber shook violently. A crack split the stone pedestal, thin but sharp, and the sound echoed like a scream. Both of them froze, staring at the jagged line that now ran beneath the glowing shard. The hum rose higher, sharper, filling the air like thunder. The alien woman's face went pale, her grip tightening painfully on his wrist. "It is waking," she whispered, her voice full of terror. John's throat went dry, his heart slamming against his ribs. If the prison was breaking just from their struggle, what would happen if he actually pulled it free? The chamber shook harder, dust raining down, the walls splitting with small cracks. The carvings seemed to move, showing the shadow creature rising again. John's eyes widened, sweat running down his face. The temptation burned brighter than ever, but so did the fear. Every instinct screamed at him to both grab the crystal and run from it. The woman released his wrist and pushed him back, her voice loud and desperate. "Leave! Leave now before it fully wakes." But John did not move. His feet were heavy, his body frozen in place, staring at the shard that pulsed like a living heart. He thought of Earth, of his people, of the future. If this crystal truly held endless energy, endless power, could he really walk away? The thought cut through the fear like fire through fog. But another thought followed quickly, darker, colder. What if the woman was right? What if even touching it would destroy everything he loved? The chamber roared again, the crack spreading wider, the glow flaring until it blinded his eyes. John shielded his face with his arm, his body trembling under the weight of choice. He stood at the edge, every muscle pulling in two directions. This was the breaking point, the moment where one decision would decide not only his fate, but the fate of entire worlds. The alien woman cried out over the thunder of the shaking ruin. "Human! Choose life or choose death, but choose now." Her words struck him like a blade. His breath came fast, his vision blurred, his heart ready to break, and still the crystal waited. Glowing, whispering, tempting, it was patient. It was eternal. But John was not. And soon his choice would fall. The ruin shook like a living beast, The crystal blazed with light so strong that shadows stretched across the walls, twisting and dancing like fire. John stood before it, his body trembling, his mind locked in a storm. On one side was the alien woman, her silver face pale, her eyes filled with desperation. On the other side was the crystal, glowing with promise, humming with temptation. The chamber roared again, stone dust falling like rain. The crack in the pedestal spread wider, sharp light spilling from within. It felt like the world was holding its breath. Waiting for him to decide, John's heart pounded, his throat dry, sweat dripping down his brow. The alien woman's voice cut through the thunder. "Human, step back. If you pull it, nothing will stop what comes after." Her words shook with terror, but also with truth. John could feel it too. The crystal's hunger pressed against his chest, but another thought burned inside him. What if she was wrong? Humanity had always touched the forbidden, had always gone where others feared. Fire, machines, space itself. Each step forward had come with warnings, and still humans had taken the risk. Was this any different? He stared at the crystal, its glow now almost alive, pulsing like it wanted him, like it needed him for a moment. He saw his reflection in its surface, not weak, not afraid, but powerful, unstoppable. John's hand rose slowly, fingers trembling. The alien woman screamed, lunging forward, but the chamber shook so violently she stumbled back. Her voice cracked with fear. "You don't know what you are doing." But John's voice came steady, almost calm. "Maybe I don't," he said, "but maybe that's what makes me human." The hum rose into a scream. The walls split wider. The crystal shone like a star, blinding and pure. John's hand closed around it, and the world exploded in light. For an instant there was silence. Then the crystal pulsed violently, sending a shockwave through the chamber. The pedestal cracked apart, the walls split, and the ceiling rained stone and dust. John staggered back, gripping the shard in his hand. Its glow burning into his skin, it was hot, alive, vibrating with energy that shook his bones. The alien woman's voice broke into a wail. "No! You fool, you've doomed us all!" Dark smoke burst from the crystal, curling like living shadows. It poured across the chamber, twisting and writhing, forming shapes too terrible to describe. The hum became a roar, deep and endless, as if something ancient had drawn its first breath. John fell to one knee, pain shooting up his arm. The crystal pulsed in his grip, trying to force itself free, but he held it tighter, jaw clenched, eyes blazing. His human stubbornness rose like fire. "You want out?" he shouted, his voice raw. "Then you go through me." The alien woman stared in shock. Her people had run, had feared, had bowed before this prison. But this human held it, fought it, dared to resist. She had never seen such defiance, and for a moment, hope flickered in her terrified eyes. The smoke coiled into a monstrous shape, eyes of burning red opening in the dark. The air turned cold, heavy, every breath like ice. The creature's voice rumbled without words, a sound that shook the walls and the bones inside them. The alien woman cried out, pressing her hands against the floor, chanting the words of her people, her voice mixed with John's defiance. One ancient, one human, standing against the rising shadow. The chamber split apart, fire flashing from the cracks. John staggered but refused to let go of the crystal. Every part of him screamed to release it, to run, to give in, but he tightened his grip, teeth clenched, heart burning with fury. He thought of Earth, of the people who had no idea of this danger. He would not let them be destroyed, not while he still breathed. The alien woman's chant grew louder, her eyes glowing bright. She poured her strength into the prison, trying to seal the cracks. But without John holding the crystal, it would have shattered already. Together, unwilling allies, they stood at the edge of doom. John roared, lifting the crystal high. Light burst from it, clashing against the darkness spilling out. The creature shrieked, its form twisting in rage. The chamber howled with thunder, stone and flame colliding. The ground shook so hard John thought the world itself would split apart. The alien woman screamed one final word in her ancient tongue. The cracks in the walls flared with light and the shadows recoiled. The smoke hissed and screamed as it was dragged back into the crystal. The red eyes vanished, the monstrous form dissolved. With a final roar, the crystal sealed. Glowing brighter than ever before, silence fell, broken only by John's gasping breaths. He dropped to his knees, the crystal still in his grip. Glowing faint but stable, the alien woman fell to the ground too, trembling, her body weak but alive. The ruin groaned, stones shifting, but the chamber did not collapse, not yet. John stared at the crystal in his hands. It still pulsed, still whispered. But weaker now. Like a beast chained once again, he raised his eyes to the alien woman, her face pale with both fear and awe. "You see now," she whispered hoarsely. "Once free, it will never stop, never rest. It will always wait for the next fool." John's hand shook, his mind heavy with the weight of what he had done. He had made his choice, and now there was no turning back. The prison held, but for how long? The chamber was filled with silence after the storm of light and shadow. John knelt on the cracked floor, the crystal burning faintly in his hand, his chest rising and falling like he had just carried a mountain. The alien woman lay nearby, her silver skin marked with dust and scratches, her breath shallow but steady. The prison had held, but the air still carried the echo of the creature's scream, a sound that did not belong to any living world. John looked at the crystal, his hand trembling from the effort of holding it. It pulsed weakly now, but he could feel the pressure beneath the surface. A monster pushing against chains. His mind screamed at him to drop it, to run, to leave this cursed place behind. But another voice rose stronger. The same voice that had carried humans across oceans, across stars, across the unknown. The voice of defiance, the refusal to bow. The alien woman slowly lifted her head, her eyes glowing dim. "You should have listened," she whispered. "Now it will never sleep. It will push until one day it breaks free. And all worlds will fall." Her words cut like blades, but John shook his head, his jaw tight. "Maybe for you," he said, "but not for us." She stared at him, her face filled with confusion and pain. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. John stood shakily, holding the crystal tight in his hand, his eyes blazing with stubborn fire. "You guarded it in fear," he said. "You tried to lock it away and hope it stayed buried. But humans don't just guard, we fight, we build, we adapt. We survive." The chamber groaned again, faint tremors shaking the stone. The shadow inside the crystal hissed, a whisper that only he could hear. It pushed against him, clawing at his thoughts, trying to twist his desire into weakness. But John grit his teeth, forcing his mind to stand strong. "You don't own me," he growled under his breath. "I'm not your door, I'm your cage." The alien woman rose slowly, watching him with wide eyes. She had never seen anyone resist the crystal this way, never seen a will so sharp it cut through the whispers. Her people had been brilliant, powerful, but also proud, and pride had been their undoing. This human was different. His defiance was not born of arrogance, but of survival, of the deep stubbornness that came from fighting against impossible odds. The ruin shook harder, stones falling from above, cracks spreading across the floor. The creature inside the crystal roared silently, its hatred flooding the air like poison. The alien woman cried out, pressing her hands to her ears, but John stood tall, his voice rising above the storm. "You don't scare me," he shouted. "Humanity has faced monsters before, and we're still here, stronger than ever." The glow of the crystal flared, the shadow inside slamming against its prison. But John's grip tightened, his veins burning with pain. Yet his eyes stayed fixed on the light. He was not just holding it, he was pushing back, forcing it to stay chained, forcing it to know it had met something it could not break. The alien woman gasped, her voice trembling. You are fighting it." John gave a grim smile through the sweat and strain. "Not fighting," he said, reminding it that it's not the only thing in the universe that refuses to bow. The ground cracked wide, fire spilling from below, but John planted his feet firm. The roar of the shadow echoed again, but this time his shout rose to meet it. "You will not have me, and you will not have my people." His voice shook the chamber like thunder. The alien woman stared at him as if seeing something new. For the first time in centuries, she felt hope flicker in her heart. Maybe this was why fate had brought a human here. Maybe this was why her people had failed, and his kind might succeed. The crystal pulsed wildly, the chains of light inside straining. John roared again, pouring every ounce of will, every spark of defiance into holding it back. The alien woman joined him, placing her hands against the pedestal and chanting the ancient words of her people. Together, human fire and alien knowledge fused in the storm. The chamber blazed with light, shadows shrieking as they were dragged back inside. The crystal sealed stronger than before. Its glow steady but harsh, the tremors slowed. The cracks in the floor stilled. The roar faded to silence. John fell to one knee, gasping, his strength nearly gone. The alien woman fell beside him, her eyes wide, her chest heaving. "You are impossible," she whispered, her voice filled with awe and disbelief. John gave a weak laugh, his breath ragged. Humans usually are, he said with a grin, though his body shook from exhaustion. The ruin was quiet again, but it was not peace. The crystal still pulsed faintly, a reminder that the battle was not truly won, yet for now it was contained. Because one stubborn human refused to surrender, the alien woman lowered her gaze, her voice soft. Perhaps your people are different. Perhaps defiance is your greatest weapon. John nodded weakly, gripping the crystal tighter. Then we'll use it, he said, as long as it takes.